Welcome to my 243rd video on my work with OO gauge. This video will feature another Triang Clockwork locomotive. After my experiences with the little Triang Clockwork saddle tank engine, see parts 235 and 236 of this series, I was sufficiently intrigued to look at a couple more Triang OO gauge Clockwork locos. And this was the next one that I picked up, basically modelled on the British Railways Class 8 Diesel Shunter, which was itself derived from diesel shunters used by the LMS. I bought this on eBay UK, and this was how it came, together with the key seen here. This is not the original Hornby key. It's something similar to the key that I managed to find myself to wind the Clockwork saddle tank engine, which came to me without any key. Basically just a key for a clockwork toy, rather crudely made by simply bending sheet metal round to form the shaft. Not a great arrangement, as keys like this tend to just open out at the end and slip if any degree of force is involved in the winding. Here's the rear of the Clockwork Diesel Shunter. You can see the winding hole on the left side of the loco. The two metal rods protruding from the rear control the running of the loco. The left-hand rod stops and starts the engine, pushed in to stop, pulled out to run. The right-hand rod is the reverser, pushed in for forwards, pulled out for reverse. As you may see, this model came fitted with D-type couplings, meaning it would have been made a bit later than my Clockwork Triang tank engine, which came with the earlier Triang Type 2B couplings. Here's a picture illustrating the Triang Type 2A and 2B couplings, which are found on earlier Triang models. Here's a picture from the other side of the model. It was in fairly good condition given its age, 60 years or so. I got the model onto my 3-rail tracks for some initial running tests. Some clocks chiming there. Let's just see if I can demonstrate this Clockwork version of the Diesel Shunter running. I got it on the 3-rail layout. Of course, since it's Clockwork, it doesn't really care whether it's 2-rail or 3-rail. Now I've got to start it working, I've got to pull out this, which is next to impossible to do whilst operating the camera. Okay. Whoa, and off it goes. Whoa. And I can barely follow it. Because this is the problem with Clockwork, is you have no speed control, so they just zoom off at sort of maximum speed and then slow down and disappear in the tunnel. Okay, I've rescued it from the tunnel. And now I've got this one pulled out. Getting a focus there a bit. That's the reverser. So we're going to see if we can try and make it go in reverse now. Although again, I have to pull this out without derailing it. And off it goes. Oh, and derails itself on the point. I honestly don't know whether I had it railed wrong there or it just purely can't. You know, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if I did have it railed wrong. See, because it's extremely difficult to pull out the lever without unrailing it. Very, very difficult. There we go. Well, he got round backwards once going the other way. He does run backwards and forwards. I would say at the moment, maybe if I oiled him I can get him to run better. At the moment he doesn't run quite as well as the Clockwork, the steam tank engine with this same chassis that I had. That could get round 3 times on a wind. He can barely get round 2, but still he does run in both directions, so there's at least an initial proof of concept. Here's the key after those initial running trials. As you may see, the end of the key has opened out, meaning that it will no longer wind successfully. That's the trouble with this type of key. You can use a pair of pliers to close it up again, but it will tend to just keep opening out. The body of the loco was held onto the chassis by a screw in the back. I undid that screw. With the screw removed, the body could be removed from the chassis by pulling up the rear and then unhooking the body from the two prongs on the front of the chassis. The operating levers pivoted, but they were still going through their holes in the back of the body. I wasn't able to get my Clockwork tank engine apart any more than this, as the knobs on the ends of the operating rods were larger and I couldn't get them to pass through the holes in the body. With this model, the knobs were smaller and I was able to manipulate them through the holes, so completely separating body and chassis. I gave the chassis a good oiling at all of the pivot points in hopes that this would help the Clockwork to operate a bit better. I cleaned off the body, which was a bit dirty. Then I spray painted the body black, as I didn't feel that the original red colour was appropriate for my doings. I once more looked into LMS diesel shunters, especially those that were active in the 1930s, as I generally aim at modelling pre-war LMS operations. All of the engines pictured here were in active use by the LMS in the 1930s. I chose this one as my basis for markings. This engine was leased by the LMS from General Electric in 1934 and then taken into LMS stock in 1936. Its body is quite similar to the model, although it did have some sort of special conrod arrangement which I can't really understand. What is that second shorter rod doing? Anyway, I went ahead with marking the body of my Clockwork shunter based on that picture. I put press-fix transfers for LMS letters on the sides of the body. And as in the picture, I applied digits for the running number in a split fashion with 2 digits on the side of the cab and 2 on the body in front of the cab. I did the same thing on the other side, with the digits reading in the opposite direction, obviously. I thought the result looked fairly okay. At least there was no issue with the winding hole interfering with where I wanted to put the running number, as there had been with the Clockwork tank engine. Here's the other side of the body after decalling. I gave the body a spray of matte acrylic fixative to protect the decals and dull the finish down a bit. Here's the other side after that. The underlying red is quite visible in these flash pictures, but I didn't find it objectionable in normal light. I fitted the body back to the chassis, starting by passing the control rods through their holes. Then I did the body fixing screw back up again. So there's the model after my fiddling around. The hook on the front coupling was bent off to one side. I tried to straighten it, and it fell off. With later couplings, fixing the hook back on is quite simple, but on these couplings the hooks were riveted on. I was able to get the end of the hook round the rivet, but it just kept falling off again. So I gave in and fitted a different coupling, one that I stole from an old scrap wagon. And I got the refinished model back onto my 3-rail tracks to see if I could run it with a train. Of course, there's a limit to what can be expected from Clockwork models. They're just going to run fast at first, then to slow down and stop without getting all that far. And they're not going to be able to pull very substantial trains. There's certainly no doubt that switching to electrically powered locos allowed for much more sophisticated operations. Still, I've found these Clockwork models an interesting diversion. So now I'll finish with more of my running attempts with this model. So, will this... I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. Will this Clockwork engine be able to pull this little freight train? I think it's perhaps a bit optimistic to expect it to, given the fact it's going to try and go super fast. It may get wheel slip, it may just derail. The wagons themselves are railed okay. I did pull them round with an electric engine first just to make sure the wagons were railed right, but it's a bit optimistic, I think. But we can try, because if they've got a... Depends on me being able to start the engine. Okay, I think I've pulled that out. Oh dear. My controller is sitting on the track. Oh dear. Okay, now I've removed the electric controller from the track, so we can try once more to see if we can get the Clockwork engine to run with this train. Well, he certainly goes a lot slower with the train, doesn't he? In fact, he can't, in fact, manage to pull it at all, really. He just doesn't have enough power. Okay, so the problem is not that it goes too fast and derails, it just doesn't have enough power to pull this train, although I oiled the axles and everything first. Oops, I just derailed the... No. He really does not have enough power to pull that train, does he? And he is fairly fully wound. I wouldn't say he's totally fully wound, but no, it cannot get him to do it. Give him a bit of a push. That's about it. He can just about get a little way if I give him a push. Okay, let's just have one more try. I've taken 2 of the tank wagons off, so now we just got a converter coal wagon, which is actually fairly heavy, 2 metal tank wagons, and a brake van, which is actually a later 00 plastic brake van. So we'll see if he can manage to pull that train. Oh yes, he's pulling that train quite fast. Too fast almost. I mean, the Clockwork engines, let's face it, are not a very effective way of pulling trains, but yeah, they're kind of an interesting little side note. He's going to go and get stuck in the tunnel, isn't he? They do love to get stuck in the tunnel just to frustrate me, I think. Well, there you go. That's my second Triang Clockwork locomotive. Okay, well, the Clockwork engine is stuck with that little train at the back of the layout because his Clockwork's one down. Not completely. I'm sure if I uncoupled him from the train, he'd probably get around for another circuit or so. But anyway, just as an experiment, I'm going to see what happens if I try and send a bank around, try and send an electric locomotive around to give the train a little push. Can we do that? Famous last words. This is an N2. Ooh, better go slowly. Oh, famous last words. I think we went too slowly there. Oh, terrific. Well, we got it moving a bit, but then the problem is I think the electric locomotive. Yes. Oh dear. No. The problem. No, it's not the electric locomotive's fault. The wagons have derailed on the corner. Okay, one more try with the Clockwork locomotive with the shorter freight train. I'm getting quite an expert at pulling that thing out. That famous last words. It's not going. Why is it not going? Okay. I don't know what its problem was there. It just decided it didn't want to go. These Clockwork locomotives do sometimes kind of do that. Just decide that they don't want to operate. Something isn't quite the way they like it. Oh well. He's stopped in the same spot again, basically, so what can you do? He's not very keen on pulling a train much, but still, he looks quite nice.